Welcome. Today we're going to be talking about tips and tricks for delivering virtual classes. This is going to include talking about integrating Zoom or Adobe Connect and using other virtual meeting hosts in your TMS classes. So our agenda today is to see what Learn on Demand Systems offers for virtual classes. We'll take a look at our custom virtual meeting host setup, and then we'll take a deeper look at Zoom and Adobe Connect and how those are set up as our virtual meeting hosts. And at the end, I hope you will be understanding the benefits of hosting your virtual classes through our training management system. Then we'll go over some resources and have a question and answer period. Running virtual classes in our training management system gives your instructors and your students some benefits, like your instructor can log in and launch his labs and also enter the classroom, the virtual classroom, all from one page. We also supply virtual lab monitoring, and this is an over-the-shoulder view of each student's work in the lab interface as they're working. So it gives them the ability to see everything they're doing. It also allows them to share files through the lab interface to the students. They can send messages to the class or to an individual within the lab interface. And if a student is struggling, they can take control of the lab and show them and work through the steps for them, and then release control and leave that student back in place. Our students, we want to give them everything that we can for them, for their class, and they'll have all of the resources that are in the course or in the class itself, as well as being able to launch the labs right from their enrollment, enter the virtual classroom from their enrollment, and they can review class recordings from any virtual session you've recorded right in their class. So let's take a look. The first piece we're going to look at is our simplest integration, and that is a custom virtual classroom. And with a custom virtual classroom, it allows you to have any virtual meeting host that you want. You can use anything, anytime. It is available to everyone to use. What you need to do to set this up is go out and create that virtual meeting in the meeting host that you're using. And once you've created that meeting, you'll also create a class in the TMS, and then you'll take the meeting ID URL and input it into your class. So I have set up a meeting through Teams, and I got my invite, and it gives me the meeting ID and the meeting URL right there in the link. So I'll just copy the link, and then I can edit my class that I've already set up. And when I come in here, I can go down to the delivery section, and I'm going to change delivery from physical to virtual. I can either use virtual or physical and virtual. Virtual is for classes where everybody is remote, and physical and virtual is if you're going to combine a class where you're having a session in your center or an organization, and you want to have seats for people in a class. You can add a classroom and create that, and then they can also have virtual access for other students who may not be able to be in the classroom environment. And you'll see I have several options. The custom virtual classroom, as I said, is available to everyone all the time. My organization has a Adobe Connect and a Zoom account set up, and you can, in fact, have multiple options for any of your virtual meetings. I might have two different Adobe accounts, and I differentiate between them, or multiple Zoom accounts. And I can also use the custom virtual classroom at any time with those existing. So I'm going to paste that into the URL. When I save it, I get that Enter Classroom button immediately. And that Enter Classroom button will be there as long as that class is set for virtual. So that's our simplest integration. We're going to talk about Zoom next. And Zoom and Adobe Connect both give us a deeper integration than the custom virtual classroom does. They both allow you to create a class inside the TMS. And once that class is created, it goes out and it automatically creates the meeting for you in either Zoom or Adobe. Another thing it does is it controls that Enter Classroom button for when it is available to students and instructors to use. The other feature it allows is any virtual class sessions that you've recorded are available to the instructor and the students right here on the page. A little bit about the setup of Zoom. Once you create an account, you're going to go out and get a contract, which will allow you to create an account. That will determine how many licenses you have or how many different instructors you can assign to classes at different times or at the same time. And it'll also control how much time you can record and save that up in Zoom. So you'll take care of all of that and make those decisions, and it'll give you this little account that you have. Now we have some things that we need from you in order to set up your Zoom account. We'll go in and we always use the same service URL, but we'll need this client ID and this API secret. And those aren't automatically created in Zoom for you. You have to go out and create your own little application in order to do that. So you'll go to the Zoom Marketplace. From this Develop menu, you'll go to Build Application. And we're going to use a JWT application. You can see I've already done this. It's a JSON Web Token application, and this allows our two platforms to speak to each other through an API that they have set up. So I'm going to take a look at it. It's really simple to set up. You'll just put in some different contact information on the first page, and you have to come through all of these different pages before you are finished and activated. When you hit continue, you're going to get to your credentials and the things that we need from you. We need this API key, and you can copy it right here. And we need this API secret, which you can copy here. And those are the things you're going to provide us, and you can open a support ticket to ask for that integration. But if you stop now, you will not actually have activated your account. So you need to continue, and then it will actually activate your application for you. Once we get those from you, we'll go ahead and input them into and create the integration for you. After that, what you'll need to do is work on some account settings in Zoom. So you can go in here and set your preferences, and you can see I'm in account management and I'm in account settings over here. And the first thing you're going to set up is your meeting information. And Zoom requires you to either have a waiting room set up or to have a passcode set up for the meetings. It's a new requirement that they came up with a few weeks back. We are using the waiting room, so that allows us to enter the participants without having to provide them a pass key or a passcode to get into the class. So you'll go through and you'll set up the preferences you want for those. And on the recording tab, one thing that you must have is cloud recording. You need to set up cloud recording for us to be able to, for the API to be able to send that recording over to the TMS and have it available for your students. And if they do, like if the instructor chooses to do a local recording, it'll be on their machine, and there's no way for us to get access to that recording. So you'd have to send out URLs to them. Once you have this set up, here's a big tip for you. Under Personal and Settings, you have the same options. And if these don't match to your account management account settings, that can really give you a frustrating day. So if they don't match up, we've had issues where students can't enter the classroom, or the recordings aren't there, or they're not accessible. They can't open them. They have to supply things like username and password that they don't have. So be sure that you go in, and if you have both of these available to you, the account settings and the personal settings, that you have set them up so that they are the same as one another. And Zoom has one other requirement that is necessary for the API feed between our platform and their meeting host. And that is that to be an instructor in our platform on one of their classes, the instructor has to be licensed in Zoom. When you add the instructor in the class and you have the class sessions, those are the two things it's looking for, it will look for a matching email address for that instructor that you put. It should be their user profile primary address. And it will look in here to see if you have that person matched and if they are licensed. And then it'll allow you to create the meeting in Zoom. If you have one license, or if you have 10 as a pool of licenses, or however many, you can change that out simply by editing and changing your user to basic, and then opening up the user that you want to add as a class and making them licensed. So you can switch these out, but they have to be done manually in Zoom. Let's go back and take a quick look at our Zoom class. When I'm working on a class, I don't have to set up the meeting directly in Zoom. I'm going to have it in here and set up my students. And then it's important that you set up session times. If you're having a multiple day class, that you have multiple sessions set up. This is what controls that Enter Classroom button to show up before the class and to disappear after the class. Zoom, we don't have any custom settings for this. Anytime that you're using Zoom, it's going to allow the instructor access to enter the classroom 60 minutes before the class starts, and it's going to allow students to enter the classroom 15 minutes before the class starts. And once the class session time is hit at the end, that Enter Classroom button will disappear. The class session, the virtual class, will continue on until they exit it, but if they get bumped out after the end time of the class, they won't have that Enter Classroom button to rejoin the conversation. So delivery, I'm going to come in here and set it to virtual. And this time I'm going to choose Zoom. At this point, and I mentioned that you have to have a licensed instructor added into the class in order for it to create the Zoom meeting. So let's not add an instructor and take a look at what happens. When I do this, I get the message that the selected virtual meeting host requires an instructor to be assigned before provisioning the virtual meetings. No instructors have been assigned, therefore no virtual events will be scheduled in the Zoom account. Would you like to continue? So it's telling me you're making a class, you haven't added an instructor, so we're not going to be able to create the meeting in Zoom for you. And you can continue and hit OK, and it will save the class for you here, but you still don't have a meeting in Zoom. Let's go in and take a look at what happens when I add a not licensed instructor. And I'm going to use this Brian. And when I save, I'm going to get another error message. And it tells me the following instructors have invalid licenses or are not associated with the given Zoom account, Brian Manager. My licensed instructor has to be the primary instructor. If you have multiple instructors, the other ones do not have to have licenses in order to be entered into the meeting and be instructors in that. I'm now going to add my actual instructor, who I know is out there, Piper Pepper. Add her to the class and save it. It creates the class. When I impersonate my instructor, because the class time has already started, I get the Enter Classroom button and I can launch my classroom. There's a couple of things that we're going to want to have the instructors be aware of when they are in the class. One is they can start the recording if you don't have it set to start automatically, and they need to choose that record to the cloud right down here on the record button. So we would hit that. They have all of the different features that they can use, and you can find more information about the features through Zoom. When they end a session, they don't just want to leave the meeting, they want to end the meeting for all. That's your best bet on everything with that. And we're just going to close that. That is our setup for our Zoom class. The last piece that we're going to take a look at is Adobe Connect. And Adobe Connect has a bit of a deeper integration. They allow us to set up more features than Zoom has. Adobe Connect has some other options that are allowed. When I go in to create the integration for you, it's centrally managed. All of the integrations are right now. And so we'll have to create it for you, and you can request that by opening a support ticket. We'll need several pieces of information from you. One is the service URL. So you've got a contract with Adobe Connect. They'll give you a URL for where you can access your account. You'll have an account ID. You'll need to provide that to us as well. And then your username and password at an administrative level. We need to be able to sign in and access your account. That seems like a lot, but we just basically have to come in and set up all of these different IDs for you, and we have to have administrative level access in order to find and input the IDs. With Adobe Connect, you can customize when the instructor has the Enter Classroom button appear, and when the student has the Enter Classroom button appear before class. And you can also customize how long after the scheduled class session end time they will have access. So if you want your instructors to be set up to have access 2 or 3 days ahead of time, you'll need to let us know. So if you don't, it'll default to 60 minutes, 15 minutes, and then no access afterwards. Post access to the Enter Classroom button, I would recommend 30 minutes if you're going to do that, just so that if the class goes long and the students and the instructor are still discussing things and someone loses internet connection for a minute and they try to come back in, they'll still have an enter button for a little bit of time. So for Adobe Connect, if you have multiple licenses, they will actually switch out the meeting host. That's what they call their person that's leading the meeting, which would be our instructor in the class, based on you're setting up the class. So if you go in and set up the class and I have multiple licenses out there, I can set up a class with Brian instructor, I can set up another class with Jimmy instructor, and so on. And then the next time I go in and I set up a class with Julie instructor, it's going to switch out those licenses for the meeting host and without you having to come in and manage them. But there's always a but, isn't there? But if you only have one license, you'll have to manually switch which user has that meeting host access, because it won't automatically do it for us. So you'll come in and you're going to go to the administration tab, you're going to go to user and groups, and from here you're going to choose meeting hosts and edit it. And I cannot add another person because we only have one license. I would have to select Brian, remove him, and then add Alex in order to make the switch and to be able to have Alex as an instructor using that Adobe for the virtual meeting host. You do not need to do this if you have multiple licenses, but if you only have one, that is a necessity. So back to our Adobe class. Adobe does allow some other fun things, like we have an audio room to test the headset and mic before class starts. You can set up meeting templates for different sessions, or different instructors may like different pieces in different places. So they can do that. Let's edit and actually add Adobe Connect to my class. And so I'm going to go again to delivery and virtual. It's going to go to Adobe Connect. I have my instructor in there and I'm going to save. Let me take a quick look as Brian. And if I'm impersonating Brian, switch over. I do get that enter configuration room, and this allows your instructor and your students to go through and check their headset, check their audio, mic, and see that they're all working, or if they're having trouble with it during the class, they can jump back out and use this room to do the testing and talking and all of that to get everything set up and configured. This is not the classroom. Enter Classroom is available right now because the class time has started. If I am here before the class starts, I'll give you a little look. We have the button. I can't actually do anything with it, but it gives me the time and a countdown for how long it will be before I can access that Enter Classroom button. The instructors and the students both get this countdown so that they're not distressed about waiting for that to show up and if they're going to miss it. Well, I'm not going to launch the Adobe Connect, but you can launch those, and they have a bunch of different chat features and different things like that. When you record in Adobe Connect, it will automatically record and save that recording and be available in the class for the students and the instructors. Let's go over here, and actually I can show you where they get the recordings. So when I hit that recording link as the instructor, I am brought in and it tells me, when the recording was made, how long it was for. You can launch it over here from the watch link. Let's take a quick look as a student at what happens for them. One moment, please. When a student logs in, they're going to be dropped right into their current training page. They'll open the class that they're going to go into. In this case, the class they actually hasn't started yet. So they could go into the configuration room. It does tell them how long before the Enter Classroom button will be available. And it does change over to that Enter Classroom button and allow them in. They don't have access to launch labs right at the moment because the class has not started yet. But once that class start time hits, they'll have a launch button for their labs and any activities in the course as well. So because I have a session recording already for this class, they can enter that recording link and they can watch recordings from here. So it's really easy access for them to get to the features they need in order to participate in the class. Let's go back to our slideshow.
Thank you for joining us for the webinar, and we hope to see you again at another one soon.